Physical boundaries. This is something that I've really struggled with in the past, and I would hazard a guess that most other Christians have as well. So if this is something that you struggle with, know that you're not alone. Hello everyone and welcome to the Salt YouTube channel. My name is Paddy, a very warm welcome to you if you're new here. And today we're going to be talking all about mistakes that I've made during my Christian dating journey so that you don't have to. Okay, so mistake number one is something that I'm very guilty of, and I'm sure other people have been guilty of in the past as well, which is letting your relationship status define your self-worth. You know, this can be incredibly damaging and detrimental not only to the relationship because you're putting all of this pressure on this other person to fulfill your needs for security, but also to yourself as well. If you don't feel comfortable or confident within yourself outside of the context of a relationship, that's really going to hold you back from achieving your own dreams, your own goals, and ultimately having a sense of grounding and a foundation to build healthy relationships upon. And if you don't have that foundation, you also run the risk of settling into the wrong relationships for the sake of being able to fix that part of you within yourself that doesn't feel worthy without that. So make sure that when you do go into a dating situation, you're not just trying to fill a need that you actually need to address within yourself first. Okay, so mistake number two is similar, which is unburdening all of your issues and your baggage onto your date in the early stages. Now, whilst it's really important that we can find someone that we're emotionally compatible with and that we can see ourselves doing life together with in the long run, especially during the difficult times, ultimately, if you end up unloading a lot of that stuff in the really early stages when it's still supposed to be quite light and you're just getting to know each other, the chances are that you're going to end up overwhelming them because they don't know you well enough yet to know who you are outside of those struggles. And it's also really important to say as well that it's not our partner's role or responsibility to fix those issues within us. Ultimately, if there's stuff that we need to work on through prayer, through therapy, through just self-growth, the burden and responsibility for working on that falls on ourselves. And whilst a great relationship, and especially a great marriage, should look like a partnership, ultimately if there's stuff that we need to deal with and address, then it's our responsibility to make ourselves accountable for dealing with that. Okay, mistake number three is rushing the relationship. Now, I know it's really easy when we find someone that we really click with to want to rush to the destination because we get overexcited and think about all the possibilities. However, if we do rush to make the fantasy version of the relationship a reality too quickly, then we risk missing out on the all-important stages of getting to know someone well enough to understand whether we're truly compatible with them or not, and to build a good foundation for a healthy relationship moving forwards. We also then risk missing out on potential red flags or compatibility issues that we really should be paying attention to because we overlook this in favour of reaching that destination of being in an exclusive relationship. So make sure that you're enjoying the journey and not just rushing to where you want to be. Okay, mistake number four is testing physical boundaries. Now, this is something that I've really struggled with in the past, and I would hazard a guess that most other Christians have as well. So if this is something that you struggle with, know that you're not alone. You know, it can be really easy to go into a relationship with all the right intentions around physical boundaries, and we can even have really productive conversations with our partners about where our limits and our boundaries are. However, in the heat of the moment, it's really easy for those boundaries to get blurred. You know, perhaps we have a boundary that we're just going to give someone a peck on the lips to say goodbye, but then that peck becomes a snog, and then that snog becomes a make-out session, and that make-out session becomes something that we actually can't undo and regret further down the line. Be brutally honest with yourself. Spend time in prayer and self-reflection to understand the level of physical intimacy you can handle before things start to get out of control. And if things do start to get out of control and escalate further, make sure that one of you calls a timeout before it gets too hot and heavy and you've done something you regret. Because ultimately those kind of timeout moments are where we can actually see where things could have headed, and we have the opportunity to be more honest with each other and make sure that we're supporting each other in preserving the purity of the relationship. Mistake number five is ignoring your gut instinct about the relationship. Now, the caveat to this is that sometimes there are legitimate issues that we need to deal with around our own fears of commitment that can stop us from seeing a good thing in front of us when we have it. However, outside of this, 9 times out of 10, your gut instinct is correct. And if something feels off, it usually is, and my own experience has been true in this sense. Whether that is just an individual issue that needs addressing and you need to work through as a couple, for example, issues with communication, or a signal of deeper incompatibility that means you shouldn't be pursuing this relationship, make sure you trust your gut instincts because ultimately it knows what's best for us. Mistake number 6 is prioritizing your relationship with each other over your individual relationship with God. You know, ultimately God is the only one that can sustain us and fulfill all of our deepest needs day to day. And if we don't prioritize a relationship, then we can end up putting our romantic relationship on an inappropriate pedestal that means we put pressure on our partner to fulfill all those needs that only God can. That also then means that if the relationship falls apart, we have to do that much more work to make sure that we are spending time with God and getting ourselves back on the right track again. Okay, mistake number 7 is going too public with our relationship too quickly, especially on social media. Whilst it can be a really nice gesture to share pictures with the world of us together, especially if we're really excited about a new relationship and proud of our partners, ultimately, if we do this too quickly before the relationship has a chance to develop a firm foundation, it can end up creating a lot of external pressure for the success of the relationship. And we can end up nurturing the image of the relationship more than we end up nurturing the reality of the relationship. It also then means if things fall apart, there's that much more fallout and that much more hurt when you have to go through and delete all those photos and explain that to other people as well. So make sure before you share your relationship with the wider world that you guys have a firm foundation first. Okay, mistake number 8 is holding grudges or bringing up past arguments. And I'm ashamed to say this is something that I've made the mistake of doing without even realizing I was doing as well. You know, especially as Christians, forgiveness is so important. And if we find ourselves in a position where we are just ruminating over the same issues again and again and again and bring up past arguments and holding grudges, that's a real sign that our heart needs some work. Because we need to make sure that we're protecting the heart of not only our partners but also our own hearts as well when we're practicing forgiveness and making sure to let things go. And if you've both agreed to move past something, then you really need to leave that in the past. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, and if there are things that actually are worthy of ending the relationship, then what you should do is, rather than continuing to dwell upon those things and keep bringing them up, if it's time to let go of the relationship entirely, walk away from the relationship. It will hurt both of you a lot less in the long run if you walk away from incompatibilities and issues that are not resolvable versus bringing them up over and over again. Mistake number 9 is introducing family too quickly. You know, whilst introduction to family is a really significant milestone in a relationship and can be a really good indicator of longer term compatibility, because not only are you marrying your partner, but you'll also be marrying into their family too, so it's important that you guys get along. It can create, again, a lot of external pressure for the success of the relationship. And it can be really difficult if things don't work out, because not only have you invested in building the relationship with the other person, but also with all the most important people in their lives too, and it can feel like you're not only breaking up with them, but also their whole family. So make sure, again, similar to social media, that before you do this, you are well established, you have a good foundation, and that you're comfortable that you're in a position where you can make that slightly bigger commitment to introducing family. And finally, mistake number 10 is not nurturing your relationships with your family and friends. You know, it can be really easy when we get into a new relationship and things are going really well to make our partners our world, because that's what it can feel like. But ultimately, if we don't tend the other relationships outside of that romantic relationship too, then we're going to be putting all of this pressure on our partner to fulfill all of our social needs, and that can create some really unhealthy attachment patterns. It's also important to make sure you nurture those relationships, because ultimately, if the relationship doesn't work out, rebuilding those is going to be that much more difficult, and time, especially with parents, can be so limited. It's also really important that we have our own lives outside the relationship too, because ultimately a relationship is two people coming together. We might have different interests, different friendship groups, and it's really healthy and encouraged to actually nurture those interests and friendships and the things that make us individuals outside the relationship too. Because otherwise, again, you're going to be putting all of this pressure on this other person to be everything to you, and that's more than any one person can handle. Okay guys, that just about wraps things up for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We're also on socials on TikTok and Instagram, so do check those out too and give us a follow. And I'd love to hear from you. Are there any mistakes that you've made and learned from, wisdom you'd like to share, and things that you'd look back on and say to your younger self? Please do let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, I've been Paddy. It's been great to have you here, and I'll see you next time.